Welcome to Toy Business Unboxed, your gateway to the secrets of the toy industry. Here, Jason Shea, a toy entrepreneur and expert in the field.
Every product we develop is really inspired by some of the real life experience that we have with our son.
60% of all toys last year were sold on Amazon, which is incredible.
Be passionate about it because it's a road, it's a journey.
Like when you have an idea that you think is like gonna somewhat change the world, make things better, I'd say go for it.
We'll guide you through the enchanting world of toy design, marketing, and manufacturing. Now let the unboxing begin.
Welcome back to another episode of Toy Business Unboxed. Today, we are excited to have Mike from Firelock Games on the show. If you love miniature wargaming, especially richly detailed historical setting, Mike's work will definitely resonate with you. Firelock Games make wave with Blood Plunders, a pirate-themed skirmish games, and now they're also bringing additional games, and they're also launching more product into the miniature gaming space. Thank you so much for being on our show today, Mike.
Happy to be here, Jason. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so first of all, could you first share with our audience, like, what made you even start working into this kind of a niche within the niche?
Yeah, sure. So really the story is pretty straightforward. I kind of discovered these sorts of games when I was in middle school as a kid, and I got into a game called BattleTech with my brother, which is like little robots fighting each other. People know the Mech Warrior video games. It's the same universe. So that was kind of the catalyst. I also got into another game called Hero Quest, which is a similar vein.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was pretty much the only games I played. I played that quite a bit with my brother and some friends for many years. And then when I first got married and I didn't have a lot of money, I found myself doing more stuff like that, like playing at home and things. So I started getting into different games. We started getting into some historical, like World War II stuff and different science fiction and fantasy things, like some Lord of the Rings games and whatnot. So that kind of broadened my horizon. I started just playing more and more games as I discovered them. There was a game in particular called Legends of the High Seas that was I have always had an affinity for pirates and history and anything that's kind of nautical and adventure-y. So I had never considered playing with like big giant ships filled with pirates and things. That just didn't seem like a practical thing to me until I came across the game and I just realized it's really not a big leap to do so. So got into that. The game kind of went defunct. The whole company that did it was shut down. And so there was no other game like it. So I decided to try my hand at essentially making a replacement. And it started off as kind of a hobby project. And then I met my current business partner, Alex Aguila. He's been successful in business in the past. He's the co-founder of Alienware Computers. He had a great experience with that. He had always wanted to do a game company. I had a game that he liked and was excited about. And we just kind of joined forces and then started this company essentially.
I see. I think you have some of the. Could you mind sharing some of the game on camera?
So always the big attractive thing, right, is the ships. If I can get it.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a lot of detail that your team put in.
Yeah. So this ship is about from here to here. This is about a 15-inch ship, more or less. Right. And you could see it doesn't have any of the cannons or anything in it right now. But that's the ship. That's the models that you can play with. And so Blood Plunder, like I said, is our main game. And here's some figurines, for example. This is one just freshly made today. So the ships and the figures, they all come unpainted. So it's a hobby game, as you know, if anybody knows about miniature wargaming. Now ours mostly, we do have some unassembled stuff, but most of our miniatures come mostly assembled. So it's just a matter of painting them. But yes, and here's another guy that I just had laying there, so why not?
Okay.
Buccaneer with a musket there. So you can kind of see
those are 3D. Those are 3D printed.
3D printed is the primary manufacturing mode that we use right now. We also do some injection molding with hips. We used to spin cast metal pewter for the figures that are now 3D printed resin, but that is not anything we're doing anymore.
I see. I'm kind of new to the miniature game space. I do other type of board game, but not a miniature game in particular. Like if people want to get into that kind of hobby, like what do they need to purchase initially to even play the game?
Yeah, so it depends wildly on the kind of game you want to get into. So for example, Blood and Plunder, if you want to get into Blood and Plunder, the best thing you do is to buy a starter set. And all these games typically have starter sets. So for Blood and Plunder, we have here, for example, I have this big box.
I see.
And flip it around here. So in this box, you get this. It's kind of in the picture, but you can't really see. You get the rule book, which gives you everything you need to play, some history background, some information. This is all hips in this kit. So this comes with a bunch of model kits. So you see, you get this paper C mat, you get the 2 ships, you get all your cards, your dice, your token, you get 2 crews for the ships. The game mat is reversible. The other side is land because you can play on land or on sea. It's the same rules. And now that's a big kit with a lot of stuff to build. It's a model. This is a model kit. So you're building models, you're assembling them, you're painting them, putting together. If that's not so much your speed, but you're into the same thing, there are other games, and we do one like this, a much more manageable
that's much
size.
smaller. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So this is just ship combat, and it's just smaller ships. This is the old
I
edition
see.
that I have here.
Okay.
But it comes with a similar thing. You get the blue mat for the ocean. You get some terrain, little pieces that go down. It comes with 6 ships. You get the dice, the rulers, the measuring tapes, the cards, the rule books, etc. But the cool thing about this one is that the ships are you just pop the pieces together, and the hull is brown and the sails are white. So it's ready to go right out of the box. You can open that box and be playing in 5 minutes. So it varies. It varies quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then, we have an in-between, which is, so this is Port Royal. Oh, there we go. Port Royal is the same exact figures as Blood and Plunder, but it plays on a smaller scale. So this one, you only need about 6 figures to play, so you get more than enough figures to start. You do have to build and paint the figures, but when you only have to do 6 per side, and you can play with as little as 4 if you wanted to, it's really easy. And this comes with a bunch of 3-dimensional scenery and stuff like that to go with the mat and everything else. So this kind of gets you, if you want something more in the middle, this is called a skirmish war game, is kind of what we call these. So skirmish just means it's a smaller scale of fighting.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of an in-between place where you can get in, do a little bit of the hobby stuff, but it's not like with Blood and Plunder, you get 13 models. It's like the minimum that you'll need to build plus your ship. Whereas this one, you could do half that. And 13 models in Blood and Plunder is like a bare minimum. You really want to play with more. Typically, you want at least 25, right? So 25 is really a better place to get a feel for the game. Whereas this game, 6 figures, you're playing the full game.
Which one is the bestseller currently?
Blood and Plunder is by far a bestseller right now.
Oh, okay.
Oak and Iron, and Port Royal do sell pretty well, but Blood and Plunder eclipses both of them, definitely. Now, the good thing is Blood and Plunder does have a lot of crossover with Port Royal since it uses the exact same figures.
Oh, okay.
So you can use the same figures to play both games.
I see. How long is usually the gameplay for a game like that?
So it varies. Our longest game is Oak and Iron. Oak and Iron games tend to take about 2 hours usually. Port Royal is very fast. It's typically less than an hour, usually around 30 minutes. It depends. If you're learning, it's always a little slower. But once you know the rules pretty well, it takes about 30 minutes. Blood and Plunder is kind of right in the middle. Blood and Plunder games typically go a little more than an hour and a half. And a lot of times it depends on. So these games are all scalable. You can play that small Blood and Plunder game with 13 figures aside, more or less, is going to be done in 20-30 minutes. Right? But you could scale that up, and we do big convention games, right, that'll last 4 hours. There's 600 or 700 figures on the table,
Oh, that's a lot.
and a bigger space. Yeah. So it's very customizable experience. So if you don't have a ton of space, Blood and Plunder is kind of unique in respect to a lot of games in that it can play small well, but it also plays really big well. Most games kind of specialize in one thing. But Blood and Plunder is a little more flexible than most. So it's you could play, giant tables, or you could play really small tables like at home on like a 3-foot board. It just depends on what you want to do and how much time you have.
I see. So, and all of them have like similar theme, or I guess the space or the world.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all based on 17th and 18th century colonial history of the Americas.
Oh, I see. And I think over the years, as you grow this business, what has been like some of the biggest lessons that you have learned?
So the biggest lesson I've learned is exactly how niche of an industry it is, right? When you have a lot of friends and stuff who play, it kind of feels bigger than it really is. But when you get out there, you realize that you're fighting for a very small market share. Right. And I totally understand because I am part of the problem myself, but it's a market share with a lot of ADD, if you will. So the next shiny thing comes around, then everybody gravitates toward that for a minute, and then they go back to another thing or the next thing. So you do have to be constantly innovating and trying to come up with new things and exciting things to keep people interested, so they don't get distracted and shift over to the next exciting thing. Because it's such a small space that any new thing that comes in is potentially a big deal.
I see. So how often are you launching new product on the product line?
Yeah, so we're in some one way or another, we're launching new product probably 2 or 3 times a year at least. We're trying to make that every quarter. We've experimented with a few different things. We've tried to do smaller, more consistent releases. We've also tried the thing we've had the most success with is a model that we're now kind of implementing, which is where we're doing big crowdfunding projects. One big crowdfunding project a year, supplemented by 2 or 3 smaller ones.
I
And
see.
smaller, not so much in scale, but just as far as like our actual development. How much is already done? How much do we need to get done? How much time do we have to put into it, essentially, is kind of how we scale it, not so much in the quantity or quality of the thing.
I see. And what are some of the new games that you're currently working on that you're planning to launch right now?
Yeah. So right now, the 2 things. So we've got a game called Blood and Bayonets. So one of the things we do is we publish kind of like fan projects, sort of. They're the easiest way to describe it. So people who play Blood and Plunder, for example, they really like the rules a lot of times.
Okay.
And they want to use the rules to play other sort of settings. So one of the more recent ones we did is called Blood and Bayonets. So it gets Blood and Plunder and kind of transposes it to the Napoleonic Wars. So you
Okay.
can play, the rules are not exactly the same, but they're the same kind of baseline. They just add some stuff to make up
Okay.
for the differences in that conflict. So that we kickstarted earlier this year and is about to go to print. We're just waiting on one final edit, and then it's going off to the printers, and it should be out in the fall sometime. And then we also have we have a role-playing game called War Stories, and that's a World War II RPG where you play the role of an allied US soldier or British soldier or Australian now with the new expansion that we put out for the Pacific for that. And there's some different options there, and it's that's going to be out right around the same time as Blood and Bayonets, just because the way things ended up. But it's a pretty different market for those 2 things.
I see. For the type of product that you're selling, what kind of marketing has been working well for you so far?
So the 2 things that have worked the best for us is YouTube sponsorship. So where we basically find YouTube influencers and have them basically mention our products or talk about them and do some advertising in that regard. And then also social media. Facebook and Instagram and still the 2 that do the most for us.
I see. Are you also running ads on an ongoing basis for those?
Yeah, pretty consistently, yeah. That's what seems to give us the best result.
I see, for the brand. Okay, got it. And also, are you also going to quite a bit of conferences as well?
Yeah. So we do. We go to quite a few conventions every year, and we have a presence at a lot of the big shows. The 2 big ones that we do are Gen Con and Adepticon. Gen Con is coming up now in August. Adepticon is in the end of March. So those are our 2 big shows. We do a few smaller ones as well as some very small local ones for just a couple hundred people. But that's kind of like our local community of people we know. So it's just kind of for fun.
I see. And do you also run any kind of like tournament, like in-person tournament for the games?
Yeah. So part of war games in general is that it's very community driven. So when you have a game, by nature, you're going to have a community that comes with it, especially because these are games people play against each other. And that, of course, draws the competitive aspect. So we do have a very active tournament scene. So a lot of these tournaments happen in local game stores all over the world, and we do support them. So if you're running a tournament, somebody will email us. And we have a program also called Quartermasters, where it's like they're kind of just fans of the game, but they sort of want to represent the company to a degree and help us grow the games because they want to see more people playing the games, right? So we have like this mutually beneficial relationship where we give them free product in exchange for them spending time to run demos and get people excited about the game. They're kind of like ambassadors.
Yeah. Okay, that's a very interesting strategy.
Yeah, and it's not our idea. It's a very common thing in the wargaming world because it's kind of necessary, right? Like if you go to a game store and no one's playing the game you want to play, you can't build that community yourself and get people excited to do so. You're probably going to lose interest in the game, and that's not good for the game or for you, right? So, but those guys typically they do the majority of the work, vast majority of the work for running tournaments and things. And but we support them again with prizes and things. That's part of what we give them things for. So we give them free products so they can use it to incentivize people to play, have giveaways, do tournaments, things like that. They can use it for some of their own collections as well, just to, keep them excited and motivated to do things.
I see.
But yeah, lots of tournaments. It's a big thing for us.
I see. And what does a general rule look like? Because I haven't played one of your game yet. So if you just explain on the high level how the gameplay usually works.
Yeah. So the very high level of it is we're going to set up a table. We're gonna roll or choose a scenario out of one of the books, and that's gonna tell us what the mission is, right? So what we're each trying to do, right? It could be like symmetrical or asymmetrical, so we can have same or different objectives. It varies, right? So then once we have that set up, we are gonna build. We have a certain number of points, and each little group of characters is worth a certain number of points. Their leaders are worth points. The ships are worth points, etc., and all that. So let's say an average point cost for Blood Plunder is around 200. So we're each gonna build around 200, and that's gonna give us a balanced game, right? So we're both playing the same number of points, so we know that it's gonna be a fair game. From there, we get our stuff. We roll to see who's the attacker, who's the defender. Then that determines how we set up our armies. And once our armies are set up, then once you get into a game, in the case of Blood and Plunder, you're going to use a deck of playing cards, and you're going to draw cards, and those are going to give you options of how you're going to activate your units. The cards, whoever has a higher suited card is going to go first with one of their units, and then that card also tells you how many things the unit can do.
Okay.
So a fast card that lets you win initiative gives you less actions. A slow card with lower initiative gives you more actions. So that's one of the tactical choices you have to make in the game. And then from there, the choices of what you can do is things like you can move, and then everything moves 4 inches, and you can move as many times as you have actions, or you can use that to shoot. You can use it to reload your guns. You can use it to rally to try to get your guys back in fighting shape, because as they get attacked or push themselves, they can gain what's called fatigue, which will hinder them from taking actions later as you build it up. And then from there, so if let's say I want to attack your guys, if we're going to shoot, we measure the range, and farther away is a little harder to hit, and you roll 10-sided dice. And it's based on the skill that's on the character's stat line. So let's say a character has a skill of 6, and he's at the super close range, they're right in front of each other. That means I need a 6 to hit. So however many guys I have in my unit, I'm going to roll that many dice, and every 6 is a hit. And then the target is going to have a save, and that's how well they can avoid taking fire. So they're going to roll and have a chance to block those hits. And they have a target number for that as well. And then anything that doesn't get blocked gets killed. And then they do like a morale test to see if they gain fatigue based on how many guys they got killed. And that's kind of how an action resolves. And you just keep going back and forth, and you're out trying to outmaneuver each other. There's typically little objective markers on the board that you're trying to control. And those are going to give you points. Eliminating the enemy is going to give you points. And then it gets to a certain point where one side is losing pretty significantly. You'll do what's called a strike test to roll and see if your guys are going to surrender or run away or something like that. And that's kind of a general overview of how it plays. If the side that doesn't run away will be the winner. Otherwise, it typically is a certain number of turns, right? So typically we play 6 turns. At the end of the turn 6, whoever has the best score is going to win.
Oh, based on a score points.
And that's based on how many of those objectives you're controlling, how many of the enemy you killed, etc.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
Each scenario is different. It's not always the same scoring. Sometimes there's different ways to win. It just depends. Yeah.
I see. But you also add more variety to the game because each time you play is kind of a different scenario and different setup.
Yeah. And then with the scenery and everything, how you can change it around, every game is always different. 2 games are never the same.
I see. Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think you also spend a lot of time on like making sure the figures and miniature is also tying to the theme. So that's definitely
Right.
very, very different than typical board games. I think there's a lot more components involved as well, if I understand it correctly. How important it is for you when you're designing the game when it comes to historical accuracy of the characters and the theme in general?
Yeah. So for us, it's pretty important. It varies on the company. Some companies do fantasy miniatures, so historical accuracy is not terribly important. But for us, it's pretty important. It was kind of a big thing for us. We enjoy that aspect of it to the point that we work with a historian named Benderson Little, and we use it. He has a consultant that we use, but we don't take it too seriously either. We do realize it's a game. We're not trying to create like a simulation of real life. We're trying to make it realistic, but not a simulation, if that makes sense, right? So we take a lot of creative liberties. Like we don't know, for example, like our game, there's like over 100 factions that you can play as in the game, but they all kind of fall under these umbrellas of the nations, right? So English, Spanish, French, Dutch, Native American, etc. There's nothing in history to really tell me that a Spanish sailor is maybe a little bit tougher than an English sailor, right? Like there are certain things about discipline or training or experience or whatever, but we take some of that information and we try to get the best like picture that we can of how they would look different, and we use that to stat them and make them different. And applying that history really makes it interesting because it gives a lot of flavor to the game. So even though you'll have a guy with a musket is a guy with a musket ultimately, but with all the little historical details that we can add a lot of flavor that makes these 2 guys, even though they're both, they look the same. It's a 17th century European guy with a musket, right? But these two guys are able to play really differently because of the way they fought historically, the tactics they used or whatever. And we'll apply things like that into the design process, which makes the
Mm,
games just more fun. And
yeah.
that's the main reason we care about the historical accuracy, because we do think it makes it more fun.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I think that's also a very big component about customization, because a lot of the
Mhm.
product that you have, people actually need to spend like kind of building the components and the pieces before they can start playing. So,
Right.
and based on your experiences, what kind of typical like customer do you usually attract for the games like yours?
Yeah. So it's mostly men. We do have, compared to other games, we do have a larger percentage of women interested in playing. Women just seem to like pirates for some reason. But
Okay.
but board games in general is typically male dominant, and it's typically age range about 30 to 70. So it's kind of middle
Oh,
age
okay.
to older.
I see.
Not
Yeah.
a ton of young guys. There's
Yeah.
some, but it's mostly in that range. Yeah.
I see. Interesting.
I would say the average is probably 40 to 50, really, if you want to average it out.
Okay. I
Mhm.
see. So that's kind of the main audience you're trying to go
Yeah.
after as well. And I think you also released another game that actually is rule only without miniature, as
Yeah.
Blood and Crown, right? Can you also
Right.
talk about that one and the reason why
Yeah.
you decided to release that one?
So I mentioned Blood and Bayonets. So Blood and
Yeah.
Bayonets is the same thing. We don't produce miniatures for that game. We
Okay.
only produce a rule set. So we have Blood and Bayonets, which is the Napoleonics. We have Blood and Crowns, which is medieval. It's the 100 Years' War. And then we have Blood and Steel, which is Victorian era combat, and that's kind of just like a little bit that's the most varied one. And then there's Blood and Valor, which is World War I skirmishes. So all of those games we do not produce figures for. And again, they're all based off of, that's the one I said, it's kind of like a fan project where fans, people who like the game, kind of reinvent the rule system that we've come up with to play in different settings. And
Mm.
that's the idea. Now, because of the nature of the miniatures industry and all these historical settings, there's a
Mhm.
whole bunch of options to get figures from different companies.
Okay.
So these are mainly geared toward people with existing miniature collections, but maybe they're bored of the rules they have, or they don't like them that much, or they haven't found one that really represents it the way they like it. So this gives you another option, an alternative. And it's good for us. It's an easy way for us to diversify our player base a little bit and kind of drag, because through those games we've actually brought a lot of people into Blood and Plunder, because it's an area that they're more interested in, but they like the rules, and they kind of get dragged into the pirate side of things, if you will.
I see.
So for us, it works really well. The players all really like it, especially because a lot of times they get a lot of input, and the communities that are built around these are a little more flexible. They're parts of other existing communities for a specific genre or something. So that's part of the reason, is really just to diversify, and it's almost like a mix of marketing and just game design, and it's games we want to play, right? So we like our rules. We like playing all these different things, so it's things that we can enjoy as well.
I see. Got it. Thank you so much for sharing. And as well, kind of wrapping up today's interview, if you had to share one piece of advice with someone that's getting started within the toys and game industry, what would that be?
Yeah, so if you're out there to try to make a healthy profit, avoid war games. I joke that we should have started this as a nonprofit, because we almost kind of run it as one. We kind of depend on the goodwill of our customer base to, again, spread the good word and do things and kind of build support and interest, which is
Yeah,
interesting. I've worked in the nonprofit industry in the past, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of parallels. It's actually very interesting. But I think in toys and games in general, it's kind of find something that you can relate with. I think if you could relate with your products, and you had something that you find personally interesting and unique, or just draws you in, having that connection with your products instead of just being like a cog in a machine that's just designed to produce, just
Yeah.
gives you a tremendous edge and really makes your work a lot easier at the
Mhm.
end of the day.
Yeah, I see. Thank you so much for
Mhm.
sharing that. Yeah, it's definitely a interesting sub niche, like I mentioned in the beginning of the show.
Mhm.
It makes it kind of difficult to scale the business as well, because the demand, I think, is a little bit lower, but definitely very interesting and very passionate audience that you're building as well around the community that you're building alongside with the wonderful game that you're providing also. So for our listeners that are interested to learn more about your companies and your games, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so the best place is firelockgames.com. So Firelock, it's like behind me right there. It's a
Okay.
weird font, but
Yeah.
firelockgames.com. Obviously, we're on socials. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Discord. So we've got We got stuff everywhere there. Or if you've got a local game shop in your area, we sell direct to local game stores. We sell through Golden Distribution. We sell through other distribution sources. In the overseas, we sell through Wayland Games, or excuse me, War Cradle, BNC, a bunch of different ones. So there's lots of. We always love for people to support their local stores and try to buy our stuff from there if you can. We love direct sales as well, so come visit us on our website, especially if you don't have a local store in your area. And that's the best place to find us.
Got it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for your time today on our podcast and sharing your journey and a little bit more about your company as well.
Yes, thank you for having me. I enjoy the conversation. Thank you.
And for our audience, thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of Toy Business Unboxed podcast. We hope you have enjoyed today's conversation and find it insightful and inspiring. If you like what you have heard, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. We really appreciate your support and would love it if you can leave us a review and share the podcast with your friend and colleague. For more resources, tips, and the latest update within the toys and game industry, visit our website at toy-launch.com. Join the conversation and connect with us on social media using hashtag ToyBusinessUnboxed. We'd love to hear your feedback and suggestions for future episodes. Until next time, keep innovating, keep creating, keep bringing joy to toys. This is Jason Shea signing off on the Toy Business Unboxed podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much, everyone.